interview, we will be talking to Daniel from Connecting Roma.
Do you want to give us a quick introduction to how you started and what your main names were?
So I actually worked on a project. I've been head scouted by a children's social care in Rotherham, and they had a project passed on by the police. So they needed an interpreter, and they came to get me. So I took up their offer, and I spent 2 years in Rotherham on this project working with children's social care with about 300 Roma families. And I really started to see, well, I could always see during my interpreting career, the issues, the barriers, and the problems Roma people are going through. But being with social services, I could really see the urgency. And I started to see how I could support, or what kind of support is actually needed, what would help the professionals in order to be successful with their work with Roma families. So I started talking to people, I started talking to solicitors, I started talking to your voluntary organizations, like your, in Rotherham, it was called Action for Rotherham. And so I went there, and I given him an idea. I says, look, this is what I do. This is something I would like to do. I would like to bring more support. There's things circulating in my head. And they spoke about, they gave me the idea of a community interest company. So that was the kick. They gave me the concept, which I then basically went away with, started working on that. And I could see that a community interest company would certainly be beneficial for the community and for professional organizations. So that's kind of how it came about. That's kind of how it.
Yeah. So you went to transition then from a translation job into now helping the community, and now you're based mainly in Bradford and helping the Roma community in Bradford.
Yes, I think it being in Rotherham, I first wanted it for the Rotherham people there, the Roma community in Rotherham, but to then realize I am from Bradford, and we are going up against the same issues in Bradford, yet on a bigger scale. It's a city, and we're actually going up against more. So I thought to myself, I need to start home. I know my home well. I know my environment. I know the people, and I'm sure that Bradford would appreciate such organisation. And thankfully, I was right. Bradford responded absolutely in a fantastic way. You know, the organisation jumped on board, and it's lovely to see that they have supported us to support the Roma people.
Which organisations mainly supported you then?
So when just when we were starting the company, so I was going through all the paperwork. A funny story was that Rotherham Action actually gave me a pack I needed to do to open the company, which had 40 pages and needed like 3 directors. So the most difficult part wasn't the application, but finding the directors, of course. So it took a few months actually for me to find them. I come back and for them to say, oops, sorry, we gave you the wrong bundle. So from 40 pages, I went to 400 pages. So I had to kind of redo absolutely everything. So it took quite a bit to open the company. And in the meantime, I was interpreting for children's social care, and they were doing a parenting assessment. And as I was doing the paperwork and everything, I was, okay, I'm going to open the company. We're going to look at funding. We were thinking about national lottery. We drafted this particular service, and we thought, okay, with this service, we'll go away and see if we can get funding for that. But during the interpreting, whilst we opened the company, whilst I was doing the interpreting, I could see real urgency this family needed. There was in a court stage, the children were in care, but the family it was just unforeseen circumstances. It wasn't anything, it wasn't under a serious category, shall I say. So I needed to structure something that an organization would basically buy. That organization would buy a service in order for us to help, rather than opening the company, doing the application for 2 months and wait another 2 months, probably another half a year till we can kind of start. So that's how Roma Worker Service was born. I did a lot of work and a lot of talking. I've spoken to Czech officials, journalists. I've spoken to solicitors, immigration advisors. I looked at so many policies, procedures, right, to be able to put a service that I can latch organizations onto, and I'll be able to bring income that is needed for the company to grow.
That makes sense, yeah.
Now you've got this established, what are the main issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then on a more longer-term basis?
Yeah, I think when we brought out the service, we knew that this is the one that children's social care needed. Yet we had so many other projects in mind, and children's social care was our main client when we opened, because the Roma Work Service is basically a service where you get a Roma professional who can speak the Roma dialect, including the European dialect, and is able to advocate for you, to represent you, to attend meetings with you, to explain information in a way that a Roma person will understand their position into procedures that they're going through or processes that they're going through. So we was very, very happy about that. And the service obviously had its flaws, and it still does have, some change that needs to be made. But I think when it rolled out, we have changed obviously so much, and again, we're changing on a daily basis. But I think Roma Worker is almost perfected as a service. The issues that we're dealing with on a daily basis and dealt with from day one is the other projects, is the other work and the other need and other urgencies that's very much needed for the community. Example is, the community constantly is ringing, is asking for advice, because we've just rolled out a COVID-19 helpline, and people ring regarding coronavirus, but then have other questions. And main one at this point is EU settlement scheme, for example. What do? I don't have a passport. Will the embassy do this? How long do I have? When does it finish? And we're kind of able to spend 5 minutes, and that's it. So we're still turning people away. We've been turning people away for these past 2 years. A lot of the organizations, because we're a paid service at this moment, it is also difficult for them to get management approval, even when it's evident it's very much needed for the family. So there's still families out there that do need this support, but are not able to get it for these several reasons. So it's basically constant work, looking at different type of funding, working with different organizations, and speaking locally, just to gain more knowledge of how we can almost secure some funding and gain the time to do more, basically.
Where is the funding you're getting at the minute coming from then? I know there's some funding for COVID projects from the Right Equality Network. Have they given you any funding, or?
Yeah, so again, the main income and what made it possible for us to grow was the Roma Work Service, so the paid service. We've also rolled out interpreting. So we've got an interpreting department that only specializes for EU Roma. So we don't cater for all languages. We are only focused on the EU Roma, and we speak all the Roma dialects. There's several reasons for that. We've seen that you don't get a consistent interpreter. You might get a Czech interpreter that doesn't speak Roma, so you might be losing information or they're missing understanding. So we've made this specialized department, which again brings income as well. And yes, we are involved in the inclusion team, which is made up of many local organizations. It's run by Bevan Healthcare and Public Health England. So we managed to get funding from them, and that's for prevention of COVID-19, so it don't spread within the Roma community. So we're setting up stalls where we're doing live streams. We're on social media, constantly updating regarding the restriction and guidelines. Race Equality Network has funded us as well, where we're able to open the COVID-19 helpline and have that strong presence on social media. So we've actually managed to designate a person specifically for that. So there's always somebody there. We've secured national lottery funding. I think that was about 6 months ago. That was successful. Now, again, all this funding, of course, takes time and effort. Yeah. So for an organization, it's quite difficult to actually open an organization or even having an organization and taking your time to do this application for the funding. It almost feels like you need funding to be able to do the funding.
Yeah, you need a dedicated person for it, yeah.
Yes, you know, this is why I was really strong at, I was really strong at the concept of the community interest company, because it works like a business and a charity. So I'm able to do business, make business, so I can basically bring money in, yeah, and put it in the charity side of the community interest company. So it's absolutely brilliant in that way. And this is why we did a lot of work into our services regarding interpreting and the Roma work service. There's also housing. So we've seen the urgency of housing and how much the councils are struggling to cater for Roma people regarding public housing. You know, we have a large number of families that have a large family, so should I say, with quite a large number of children. So we're looking at 5-6 bedroom properties, but we have a lack of these properties. Supported accommodation can certainly help people that are in need and need their benefits in place to be able to move on. But an EU national, especially at this point during the Brexit process, is it got totally different scenario. There's a lot more that you have to do. Look at their residency and making sure that they have the rights. Because at this moment they do have the rights, but you kind of have to have the documentation, so you have to search, you have to provide a lot of work. So these supported accommodations struggle. You know, social services had to put people up into hostels and B&Bs, which wasn't the right environment, couldn't assess them. So we've come up with another concept of what we call an emergency supported accommodation. It basically works like a supported accommodation, but we match the costs of an hotel and a B&B, and we'll attach a Roma worker into that for the support. So again, that's being used by Children's Social Care. We're trying to sell the concept to housing associations, and the service brought income into the company as well.
Are you looking at having like a housing cooperative kind of network or linking up with one for this?
Yeah, the next stage, I think, is, you know, it's really hard. You kind of think of something and then you need to find the right information or the right person with the right information to be able to move it to the next stage. And sometimes you get to speak in between. You speak to other people that feed you a little bit of information that might strain you on a different path. So again, with this one, we thought that we had to do a bigger process to be able to become social landlords. So we actually opened the company up and hope to be social landlords almost straight away, to realizing that there's loads of fees and loads of stuff involved. So we pushed it back and it was a future goal. Till now, we've spoken to during these groups that like inclusion team and the Roma strategy group, we managed to speak to a housing manager within council. Andy Kirk is his name, actually, an absolutely fantastic guy, and he gave me the right connections and the right information. And actually, we found out we don't need to be a social landlord. The concept we already have can be used by a housing association, can be used by in communities or open housing or whatever. So we kind of wasted time. So yes, we're at the stage right now speaking to the seniors within these housing associations.
So you managed just to skip a bit of a step there then with that. That's quite good.
It is, yes. It's a shame that obviously we couldn't do that before, because this urgency was there from beginning, and it's just more and more evident, especially for council. I'm getting loads of people, loads of different departments ringing me from council regarding housing. So it's definitely a priority. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to build a good project with this and hopefully move this forward. There is a goal with the housing. There's a community-led housing, they call it. It's quite a big project where you basically get to almost build an area. So there's certain stuff that you need to do, which is like you need to implement the post office and almost like a community center or a pub or something like that. So it almost works like a traditional area. Quite a lot of work, but if we are able to get that funding, then we're hoping to create something like that.
Amazing, yeah.
Of course, cater for the people and make sure that we're helping council with the housing issue, but also make it almost like the integration area. So this is where you could see our culture yet be part of Britain. So I'm hoping that that's hopefully going to happen in the future. A lot of work to go. A lot of work.
Yeah, there's always more work. Navigating the system in this country can be very difficult, even when you're fluent in English. So I can imagine what a nightmare it must be if you're not fluent in English. What languages do the Roma community speak in this country then? You mentioned the European Roma dialect. Are there other languages they speak as well?
Yeah, so Roma people, we have the language. Roma people have a language, of course, which is the Roma, and that language almost is the only thing that represents us. So we don't have a land in this world, as we don't have a country that we almost originate or that we come from. And due to that, we have different nationalities depending on where we live, where our ancestors kind of went, where our families went. So, of course, Europe got populated at a certain time, and it's almost the full Europe that you're looking at. Mainly in Bradford, we're looking at Central and Eastern Europe, but we certainly have a big community of Romanian and Bulgarian, Yugoslavian Roma. So they would all speak their national language as well. So wherever the Roma is from, they would speak the national language, which is now becoming England, of course. So Roma people in England, that you get to see that there. First language is Roma and the second language is English. So same thing, if they would be from Slovakia, you would expect them to speak Slovak and Roma at the same time. But Roma is a totally different language to.
Totally different language, yeah.
And the Roma language that the different groups of people in all over Europe are speaking, is it exactly the same language, or is there differences between the different regions?
Yeah, I'd say there's two main dialects. One of the dialects is Vlach, and I think that's basically the official Roma language, shall we say. So if you would see a book written, if you would see in regards to the parliament, Roma people in parliament, they would speak in this language. And there is certain people from certain countries like your Romanian and Bulgarian, Yugoslavia, they would speak that language. Around Eastern Europe, around Central Europe, the second dialect, what we call, is an English it translates to the common dialect. Don't know if that sounds any good, but basically it's your general dialect, and it's a little bit different. The pronunciations and some words are different to like the official language, but you can still understand each other. However, both of the languages, depending on the country that you're from, they use loan words. Yeah. So if you're from like now in England, you'll hear Roma people speaking Roma and then implement English words, but make them sound like Roma, a Roma word. So yeah, you kind of have them traits of them languages all over. So yes, if you hear, for example, a Polish Roma and a Czech Roma, it'll sound like a different language, but actually they can communicate with each other.
Right.
So in theory, no matter where you're from, if you're a Roma, you can communicate.
But I guess then that's the essential part of the translation services that you end up doing, because even if they're all speaking the same Roma language where it's all mutually intelligible, if the second language is a different thing, and when you want to be communicating exactly, then you've got to make sure that you're speaking both the languages that this person is speaking if you want to.
Exactly. You have Roma is not taught internationally in universities. It certainly is in universities, and it's definitely a taught language. My father is a professor in a university in Prague, and he teaches Roma. So the universities, obviously in the UK and internationally, don't have Roma as a certified language. And within the UK, you have to have a degree from university in a particular area or the language itself for you to be a registered interpreter. There's actually only 2 Roma interpreters that are registered in the whole of the United Kingdom. Now these are very experienced and very, very educated people who you do not get to see in a GP's appointment or a parenting assessment. They are certainly used in bigger businesses, especially Parliament. So the Roma people, when organizations, professionals undertake work, they are left with the only Czech interpreters, Slovak, Polish interpreters.
Right.
Because they can get registered within them languages. Czech is taught internationally, Slovak is taught internationally. So you can get degrees and evidence that. So you're able to use them in court, your children's social care are able to use them as evidence, and yet it was very evident for the professionals or courts and judges that they're losing evidence or they're losing the information they're trying to almost relate to the person. And so the full message is lost. A lot of Roma people are vulnerable people within the countries that they're from. We're known to be discriminated against. There's racism still alive within these countries for Roma people. So education is quite low. Even the motivation for education has gone quite low for Roma people, and they had to look elsewhere to make money, which means, as a community, they're almost more segregated, and there's many issues and problems that they have undergone within these countries. So it's very difficult for them to understand professional words, professional processes, legal processes or procedures or court processes. It's something that they've never been through this. Not to say that these countries doesn't have social services process, but maybe they haven't implemented it the way they should do to the Roma people in these countries. So then when it starts working over here, when children care, for example, starts working with Roma people, they use words like neglect, supervision, and all sorts of words. When you interpret, that person wouldn't understand that. So that's just one side of it. But then, of course, if the person speaks in Roma language, you've lost it totally. The interpreter.
Completely, yeah.
So imagine for the police, you know, I've been called out to police so many times where I had to listen onto body cam or anything, any recordings just to see when Roma was spoken, what was said. You know, but there was moments where the police would need to know there and then, and lost it. So yes, it was very, very vital and very, very difficult to put a service out there like that, because there's so many different interpreting companies already providing this business. So we basically had to explain the issues and the problems, which obviously their professionals are already undergoing. So many of the professionals have helped us in this and was managed for our Roma interpreting department to be what it is today. It's just because of the need that they have.
Is this explanation of the need for it how you've managed to get around the normal rule where you need the university degree in the language then?
Yeah, so how we kind of overcome that, how I overcome that. I was interpreting before I opened Connecting Roma. I interpreted for 10 years. I was a qualified business administrator. I had a good job at Santander. I worked for a bank. I worked for many different jobs before that. I was in NHS as a business admin. I worked for in communities. So different jobs. I was really happy with all the jobs I kind of had. I was in a bank and I was happy at that point. But interpreting was just going through my head. I knew that it's almost a talent that can be used. And so I tried, and I just got rejected after rejection after rejection, right? So I thought, okay, and they started explaining to basically what I explained to you, or why I can't join, or why they can't use me in court. And I came across one company, and they said, they like my English, because, you know, you can speak English quite well. You know, we only spoke over the phone, but they deemed me as a professional. They said, we'll give it a go. And I did the first appointment. It was the worst appointment ever. It was, you know, like embarrassed me straight away. It went so bad. And then, you know, I think another person would leave it, but no, I was really determined. I really liked it. I felt like I helped. And I just did it again and did it again. And I managed to build rapport with professionals. I managed to build rapport and interpret well. That's what it was. You know, I interpreted in a way that they haven't seen. I've interpreted, you know, stuff that they wouldn't hear. And yeah, I just managed to build a really, really good rapport with professionals, and basically my name got around. And then courts were willing to use me. There was one court, it was a Leeds court, that they were going back and forth to be able to use me or not. And then it came down to human rights, basically, that they have to represent the Roma person as a Roma person. And they got me into it. And from there on, I was used in courts. I worked for Cooperative, which is basically the interpreting service for the police for the full UK. So I traveled to Scotland, I traveled down south. I was absolutely everywhere for the past 10 years. I was literally busy from morning till night. Yeah.
And now with this Roma community group in Bradford, it's getting quite successful. Are you expanding outside of Bradford much, or even just having to work with other people?
Well, I actually forgot to mention regarding when we were in Rotherham and this was opening. Yes, it was for Rotherham. Yes, I realised I need to be at home and start it at home. But the thought of it should have been for, I wanted it for Rotherham people was in my mind at all points. So what I say is Bradford and surrounding areas for now, or I started saying that just recently, but in the beginning I said Connecting Roma for Yorkshire. I would love to have a presence in the whole of Yorkshire. We have people in you know, on the East Coast. We have people absolutely everywhere in Yorkshire, South, East, West, and they're all undergoing almost the similar circumstances and they're facing the similar barriers. and so are the professionals. You know, there's children's social care in every single council, and they're all going the same situation, and all these organisations. This COVID-19 helpline, we've put out a live stream. We're getting national, we're getting international calls. I'm getting calls from Slovakia. I'm getting calls from Czech. So you can see that there's a need there, but also, you know, we're getting calls nationally, people from London, Birmingham, Rotherham, Nottingham, Newcastle. So I don't think like south. I think there is some organizations down south, some Roma organizations that I have spoken to them in the past as well, especially when we were in Rotherham. It's Yorkshire that needs it, and I would like to class myself as a Yorkshire Roma. So, yes.
There's definitely a huge demand for this. Since you said most Roma people are bilingual, do you think this could be a route for employment for a lot of Roma people, getting into the interpreter side of things and getting some work through that?
You know, Connecting Roma as a community interest company, it doesn't mean that is just the people that we support. It's the staff also. And actually, if I could help everybody, I would employ everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know? So it's honestly, it's the number one goal. We have the smallest team, and you know, I'm so grateful. We've managed to. I came into this position, and I managed to kind of get to the career that I was in because of connections and Bradford College and city traineeships or apprenticeships, and E2E course it was called. It was basically traineeships at this point. So connections in Bradford have helped me out. They've sorted me out a traineeship. Then I managed to go on an apprenticeship, and then I was a qualified administrator. So I mimicked that for my company, and I'm so proud that we've got positions for trainees and apprenticeships, and that hopefully will go on and be fully employed and have a really good position within Connecting Roma if and as we grow.
I think you will, yeah. And it's also, you seem to have a good like short-term, medium, long-term goals, and also getting things done at the meantime, while having an idea as to how you can expand that in the future.
Yeah,
do you already? Do you have links then with the Roma groups on the east coast of Yorkshire and elsewhere, but just right now it's to work with them is a bit too much. It's a bit of a stretch.
To be honest, you know, when I've spoken to this particular person in Rotherham about the idea of Connecting Roma, and he mentioned National Lottery, and I looked into it, and there's a £250,000 pot. When I went into Action Rotherham, I went there for £250,000. Like, I didn't go there for a little project or for what I've just done for these 2 years. I literally went there thinking I'm going to come out and have £250,000 in my pocket. I'm going to go out and help all of these people.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was brought from all the way up there straight to down here.
Yeah.
In seconds, it literally took like that. But I smiled more because I knew it was possible. Right? They said, "Of course you can do that, but not yet." So I was still happy, but that thought of being up there never went. And regarding that, future's already been set before Connecting Roma open. I think I've put the goals and the visions already into it before I opened it up. All the work that underwent, especially the knockback, where from the 40 pages to 400 pages, you know, it was either I'll just draw this and forget about it, or I really go into it, right? And because I kind of just jumped into it and really worked on it, I kind of set the full goal and where we need to be and how we need to be. I haven't hit any goal because of the timing. So it's just, I've realized that, again, I was not from there back to down. It's timing, right? You think you're going to get something done in a year, but actually you managed to see it in 2 years. However, it was even better to what you envisioned. So if I was going to give advice to anybody, is don't panic. don't panic and don't get upset. You know, don't let yourself go down. You know, don't let your vision, you know, that top where you have all them ideas to then hear a knockback or hear that, or you'll have to do this or you have to do that, and you have to, don't think, that's it, it'll probably never happen. It will. You know, it will always happen. You just have to put the work in. But yeah, time does what you can never control time, I guess.
Yeah, and it sounds like your two key parts of you that keep you going are resilience and optimism there.
Yeah, I think I had to learn the hard way. Life has taught me quite a lot, and yeah, I think so.
You said your dad's a lecturer in Roman language. Is there you can tell me more about it, but what kind of like literature is there, and what kind of scope of adding to that literature can you have with this group that you're making, and I guess the expertise your dad might
have? I come from a political family. So my granddad was a man from Slovakia who came to the Czech Republic he was about 18, 19 years old. He went to year 1 when he was about 21. He finished school, as in your year 11, like gained GCSEs, totally different there, but let's just say GCSEs in like 3 years. So he was like 24, right? And he was a qualified a crane, you know, a crane operative, right?
Oh, yeah,
the machines. And he became a Roma man that was fully integrated into the town that we're from. The mayor loved my granddad. The businesses knew my granddad. The shops knew my granddad. Everybody was really happy to see my granddad. He'd go on with people. He went to horse racing with people. He did everything that the town did. He wasn't segregated. And he came up with the concept of, we need a voice. Roma people need to be represented. We should be in a parliament. And my dad and one of mine, almost like a second uncle, he's a doctor-in-law, he's a Roma man, and a very smart man. He helped, and they set up almost like a political party in the 90s. It's still alive till this day, and the university has come from that. There's theatres that come from that, and there's music that's come from that. My family is also musicians, so they have like 2 official albums that's been played around the world. They performed in America, they performed in Atlanta, they performed in Florida. So I still speak to these people. I speak to my family. I speak to the contacts there, and the vision for Roma people to move on is, I want these little bits to happen. Of course, we're supporting, I was supporting, but I wish maybe for the next Bradford festival, we come out of the pandemic, for a Roma band to be present. Yeah. Maybe a Roma rapper, maybe a Roma magician. Hey, whatever it is, to represent Roma, to show. We also have our events, cultural events, like the St. Nicholas Day. We just did that in December, 6th of December, St. Nicholas Day. We dressed up, it's like a demon that goes around with St. Nicholas and an angel. Have a look on our Facebook. It was an absolutely fantastic event. You know, the police got involved, where Roma people was like, oh no, police is here. You know, to then realize that part of the event was a moment. It was an absolute moment. So these little bits for Roma mean a lot. You know, it took 800 years in the Czech Republic for us to have 5 minutes on their TV. So for England to start implementing these bits and showing that, you know, Roma people are here to start sharing our culture and be interested, showing the interest. Maybe I said to like one school, maybe a lot of the Roma people, the European tradition is like having soup with every meal. So you always have soup, and then you have your main meal on a daily basis, right? So I said to schools, why don't you serve soup one day, maybe on a Wednesday, vegetable soup? Everybody eats that. Just that little bit, just to make them feel a part of it, and make them feel this is their home. Czech, Slovakia is no longer back home. This is their home. They need to have that type of feeling. And so that's now type of thing. That's in regards to integrating. But for the literature side, it probably is going to be a long time, and I am really hoping it's the near future. It's music and films. I think, I love that BBC, for example, have many times put out many different programs or series about many different cultures in the UK. There's drama series, there's films made. I was just thinking about one. I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember the movie called Kiddlehood? It was about.
I don't think so.
It was about the young black youth in London. I think one of the rappers.
Oh, Kiddlehood.
Oh yeah.
I've seen it. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the rappers made that, right? It was a big thing. Then he made the adulthood kind of feel that.
Yeah. It's just been Blue Story as well. Similar lines.
Yeah. I was really happy to see, how England helped and made a production. Same with, for example, East is Ease or the Asian programs, the BBC Asia. I think that would be the next step.
That'd really be something, wouldn't it?
And Bradford is a city of film, so. Yeah,
and Bradford's a city of film, and in 2025, Bradford's going for City of Culture. Are you involved in that then?
I certainly am. I hope I fill the form out right. I had to now. Yes, I gave it as much as I could. Yes, again, you're right, and that's kind of what I envisioned before I opened Connecting Roma. I came here as a child. It was 2000, and in 2001, I remember in year 7, the teacher started mentioning this. Right, I was in 2001 saying, the Bradford's going to become the city of culture. Bradford wants to become the first city of film. Officially, that's going to be coming, we need to head. And I was so excited to hear that. I just came to England. I was here the first year. I was like, what? Are you saying people can be in a film? That's real. So in Czech, they've certainly moved to that stage now. Guys, 800 years. We're talking about 800 years. They're moving to this stage now, right? Into filming. There's like 2 or 3 famous actors in the Czech. That's a big thing. And I'm really happy for them. Really, really happy. It's absolutely fantastic to see. And they're great people and they have great movies. I'll send you some links. Please watch them.
That'd be great, yeah.
It really, really goes. There's loads of movies that they made that goes deep into the daily lives of a Roma in these countries. So absolutely fantastic. Gritty cinema, shall I say, but really, really good. And England has also got, the UK has got its own type of cinema. It's not like Hollywood or anywhere else. British cinema, it's its own. And I think Roma people live in Britain, and what better way to show, we never had this opportunity. The countries that we're from, not that they just didn't give us the opportunity, but opportunities like in the UK you don't really see. Other land like here, especially with filming and music.
All right, yeah. So yeah, it seems like the Roma story is the story of generational progress. That's your family story as well.
Yes.
And you're contributing to that. And I think one of the progresses you've made is you've already secured like a headquarters in Bradford. Is that true? How did you go about getting that, and what was the process like?
Yes, I was. Whilst I was looking for my directors in the beginning to make a good board, I've spoken to an immigration lawyer who at that point was also looking at a community interest company in a different sector, and he kind of liked mine better. So he jumped on board, and he already had these premises. So he actually offered the premises to me straight away and said, you can kind of use it to just kind of for yourself. I didn't really need it, as I was just kind of one guy and just using some self-employed interpreters and Roma workers at that point. But then regarding employing people and everything else, it's I just kind of went there. He's already had an office, and we kind of decided on, we're going to be who's going to be paying what rent, and we can put a receptionist there, be a trainee, and whatever else. So that opportunity kind of was through the director, and of course having the money to pay for it. So having the services that brought the income was very vital and balancing that. I think coming into the organization as well, opening the organization, depending on what you do, you kind of need to know what you need, of course, but kind of weigh up, especially during the pandemic, things have changed. But think about when we come out of the pandemic, what is it that the business needs to be able to strive? And if it is an office, then kind of set yourself up before you go into it. So again, I did a lot of work before I opened the company, just to make sure that will be okay at all stage.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So get prepared beforehand. Get the paperwork filled in. Always key in this country, isn't it?
Sounds like the paperwork's the biggest.
Yeah, definitely secure. But yeah, the office were kind of there from the beginning. Like I said, I didn't really use it straight away. He kind of said use it, pay me after, but I didn't have the income straight away. We had to do the work before we got the income, and I got to the income. It's like, well, do I spend it on an office now? Do I spend it on something else? At that point, we wanted to open a dancing and singing, so bring like instruments and have like a Roma band, make like a Roma band, and hopefully perform in town. And then the pandemic hit, so we had to restructure all of that and everything else, and so it was just kind of weighing where do we need to be now with the money that we've got, and if you can move into somewhere, then but there's really great deals in Bradford at the moment. I think a lot of companies understand, a lot of organizations, and a lot of them are willing to help, and I think there's some great prices around Bradford.
That's good to know. Have you found the office has been useful then? Has it been
having a physical space for it?
Yeah.
Massive difference. It really has made a massive difference. Like I said, it wasn't for me. In my head, it wasn't necessary to have the office. It was the immigration. It was the other director of Connecting Roma who said, you need an office for what you guys just said, that presence. You make the presence, having something physical there for people to see or people to come to will make a difference. So I tried it, and of course, I went in thinking, okay, I can open up a position for somebody and I can pay somebody. So I was really happy to do that, and kind of that's what I went in for. But actually, it did exactly what the other director said. It made a massive difference by having the presence there, by having an office number where you're speaking to a receptionist, where you can come in and have a meeting with us, where the professional organizations know that there is some type of a system. You record stuff, have policies and procedures. It just makes a lot of difference. It really does.
That's really good to know, yeah.
What's the so obviously we're going through the pandemic now, and you're going to have problems during the pandemic. You mentioned the EU settlement scheme. What do you foresee as the problems? Because it kind of seems like in the UK this might at least last till the end of the year. So we've got the end of this year with COVID, and then afterwards there's going to be economic hits on everyone, isn't there? What kind of problems do you think you're going to have to adapt to solving? And yeah, do you think you're going to have to change a little bit what you're doing to do that?
Yeah, I think the pandemic certainly stopped us in our tracks with many things, especially projects that we set up for Roma people to be able to strive, especially regarding the integration, such as these events and everything. And but we're focusing on, of course, the support and giving them the help during the pandemic. And during this work that we've done, these stores, the information, the COVID-19 helpline, and all these live feeds, is Roma people have European television. They don't have Sky, they don't have Virgin, they have something that broadcasts Slovak TV, Czech TV, Polish TV, or I know that they like Turkish series and like dramas from Asia. They watch some Bollywood stuff. So social media, same thing. You know, they're still connected to Slovakia, still connected to wherever. So realistically, it's just information when somebody heard something that said something that apparently is happening in the UK, which is an absolute massive boom. So it's actually scary what we've been facing with, and you know, the first when it actually happened, we set up a stall and I anticipated all sorts of issues and all sorts of stuff. And when I went there and come out, it was even worse for me because I was scared of an outbreak. I really was, because like they don't even know. It's like they didn't even know there's a pandemic. And that's still happening now, of course. You know, we've reached so many other people. We've got a big presence in Bradford. What's happening elsewhere? Plus, you have organisations that may be recording people as Czech, Slovak, but it might not be recording any of them as Roma for many different reasons. A lot of Roma people don't know they should say they're Roma. They just say, I'm Czech. So then we don't even have the stats to be able to say there is an outbreak or there is a problem, right? So I think it's just working as much as we can. I think the government obviously has realised that the pandemic needs to be a priority, and they're certainly making that evident to all of us. So there is the funding out there, there is everything there, all these groups. So we're all working together, and we're hoping that we'll always have the time for the Roma community to be able to prevent a spread and to be able to respond to an outbreak or a case, basically.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think the first priority for everyone is the pandemic at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it seems like you're doing a great job helping the Roma community through that.
I'm just, like I said, you know, the government certainly got us all focusing on it, and I hope while it is here, if that's the way that we're going to keep going, then I think we're okay as even the vulnerable people. So for local organizations that are out there, I had to stop and say, okay, it's the pandemic, literally.
Yeah.
And then I might have realized that a little bit later than to when it hit the first lockdown. You know, I'm still running around doing Roma work service, you know, same as, so I was just working with the pace as it was. So then I thought myself, not anybody telling me, I thought, wait, stop, it's the pandemic.
Yeah.
And for a local organization, literally, stop, it's the pandemic, right? You need to focus on the pandemic. That's your staff and that's your people. And actually there is funding out there to give you the time to be able to spend on this pandemic and make sure your people are okay, so then you can do the work that you wanted to do when we come out of this, hopefully, fingers crossed, as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, yeah. Right, well, yeah, so get through the pandemic and then we'll see what comes after, right? But it seems like you've got a lot to do with it at the minute. Thanks so much for telling us about it. It's a lot of great information in this interview. Thanks so much for giving it to us.
Yeah, not a problem.
It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for inviting me. I was happy to share. I think we've been on an absolute a roller coaster ride, especially when the pandemic hit. You know, as an organisation, the way that we started, you know, good things are happening. Companies started growing. You know, we've managed to open up these traineeship apprenticeships. We wanted to do these events. St. Nicholas was supposed to be massive. International Roma Day, 8th of April, just after the pandemic hit, was supposed to be massive. You know, we could really see that the goals Connecting Roma have regarding integration was going to be very near. A lot of people said to us, this is a process of 20, 30 years. We thought, no way. We've been 800 years in Czech. It hasn't happened yet. So, you know, we're not going to wait 20, 30 years. We want it now. Pandemic hit, and yes, it's absolute. It is an absolute roller coaster. But again, just everybody kind of stay safe, stay healthy, look after each other. It's the new year, a rocky start. But, you know, if you look at it, and we need to think about this. I've spoken to my team about it. The government's come out to say they're the first ones and they're the number one during the pandemic. I'm sure that we'll hopefully strive for the best coming out of the pandemic. So yes, you're right, there will be economical hits for organizations, people, especially with vulnerable people such as Roma people. We just need to stick together, I say, as a community, as people, as Britain, and everybody know what we're on and what we're doing and what the path is, basically, and just go that way. So fingers crossed we should be okay.
Good message, yeah.
Yeah.